Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
When it comes to whey protein, most of the time we think of working out. And everyone has heard about people going to the gym and they have their protein shake ahead of their workout or perhaps post-workout. But we know so much more now about whey protein and how it can be beneficial in terms of enhancing our overall longevity. There is so much science out there that really is supportive to the way that whey protein is actually working. So I want to talk about all of those fine details today. I'm Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, and when it comes to whey protein, it's important that we understand the difference between a whey protein isolate and a whey protein concentrate. And there is really a difference. When you think about whey in general, we're looking at all of the essential amino acids. So that's going to help in terms of that protein. So hence whey protein. So we have this broad spectrum of essential amino acids that provide that building block that the body needs for daily functioning. But when we look at the isolate versus the concentrate, this is where I really like to have people understand. The isolate is a form that is specifically processed to actually remove the fat and the casein and the lactose out of that. So all it is doing is it's leaving those essential amino acids. So those are separated from the other components. So when we're supplementing, taking the isolated form is really quite beneficial. So we're just getting the power of those amino acids. So let's talk a little bit about the science behind this. We know that for the average adult, somewhere between 50 to 70 grams of protein per day is what we need to obtain. Now, not at one sitting, and this is very important. I've done a lot of work with people who have chronic kidney disease, for example, and they think that if they just try and take in all of their protein at one shot, that's going to be beneficial. Certainly not the case. The kidney needs to have time to be able to process the protein itself. So we like to space that out between your meals. So say, for example, and this is going to be based off of your weight and obviously any type of underlying health conditions. But we'll just say that you have, 20 grams of protein with each meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then maybe we throw in another 15 grams of protein in there for a snack throughout the day. But the protein has to be coming from the right sources. And so when we think about supplementing with a whey protein isolate, this is a really nice way for you to be able to obtain a nice amount of those essential amino acids, that building block that the body needs to function properly. And with ours, which you can go to our website, invitehealth.com, and you will see that ours is providing 13 grams of protein. And that's a really nice amount. Sometimes you'll see some of these whey proteins that are out there on the market, and then it's like, 60 grams of protein or 40 grams of protein for, one serving. And that's entirely too much unless someone is really into, bodybuilding and they're priming themselves for a big event. It's really not healthy to go with this high amount of protein all at one time. It just makes it really too difficult for the body to be able to process that. So spreading our protein out throughout the day is really quite advantageous. So the science behind whey protein, this is really kind of fascinating because oftentimes when people think about what whey protein is doing, people think about just pumping iron and getting bigger muscles, and that's the reason why people would be utilizing whey protein. And we know this. We know this from so many different research studies out there that indeed, that whey protein supplementation can help to support and increase lean body mass and increase and enhance performance when it comes to exercise, when it comes to working out. There was a study that they did at Auburn University where they were looking at the impact of supplementation of whey protein in athletes. So they took a group of athletes from Auburn University and they gave them whey protein isolate for 8 weeks, and they were looking at different markers. They were looking at their body composition. They were looking at their overall athletic performance. And at the end of the 8 weeks, what they were able to find, this was a double-blind placebo-controlled trial, they found that the group that was given the whey protein did really good in terms of improving their overall body composition. So we're talking about that lean muscle mass. So we see this time and time and again when we think about muscle strength and the muscles getting bigger. So when most people think about whey protein, they think about going and pumping iron, as I mentioned. So there was another study out of the University of Central Florida that was looking specifically at how whey protein could help to enhance not only muscle strength, but also with the hypertrophy. So when we're talking hypertrophy, we're talking about the growing of the actual muscle. So we never like to see hypertrophy in the heart. That's not a good thing. But when we think about our skeletal muscles, this is oftentimes what people are going after. They're trying to have that ripped or cut look. And so in this particular study, this is what they were assessing. They were looking at resistance training and looking at muscle strength. And they were able to determine that with the utilization of whey protein, that the whey protein helped to not only augment the muscle strength, but also the size of the muscles. So the muscles themselves actually got bigger. Well, that's very, very good. But how does that impact someone who maybe doesn't work out and isn't so concerned about getting big muscles? Well, we have to think, what else is that essential amino acid blend doing for us? Why is it so important? Well, we have to look no further than a really cool study that came out of Australia where they found that whey protein isolate actually helped to improve vitamin B12 and folate status in adults who were getting older. Now, why does this matter? Well, if we have low B12 and low folate, we know that's going to start to impact a lot of different things. We're talking about red blood cell production. We're talking about the central nervous system and the way that the neurons are working, even in the brain. So having adequate B12 and folate really makes a huge difference in terms of how we feel as we get older. So in this particular study, they gave older adults whey protein isolate, and they found that after they started to take the whey protein isolate, that their B12 and folate levels improved. And this to me is just another one of those reasons that we have to take a step back and say whey protein is not just for increasing muscle mass. This is really important for the way that our body physiologically is processing these amino acids and how they're actually utilized fully throughout the body. We understand that whey protein isolate also can make a huge impact on our intracellular glutathione levels. Why does that matter? Because if we can be taking a whey protein supplement that can help our body with the natural production of one of the most important antioxidants in the body, then that's pretty darn relevant. So Ohio State University looked at that, and they were looking at oxidative stress and the damage done by oxidative stress. And one of the things that they focused in on with the whey protein isolate was the cysteine in particular. So oftentimes we'll talk about NAC, N-acetylcysteine, but cysteine is the rate-limiting amino acid for the synthesis of glutathione, one of the most important antioxidants in the body. And being able to determine that the whey protein isolate can increase glutathione synthesis and protect cells against oxidative damage is really, really important. So we talk about as we get older, how different things start to happen, how our body isn't absorbing nutrients as well as it did when we were younger, how our body doesn't manufacture as much antioxidant as it did when we were younger. And we say, okay, well, what if we take 1 scoop of whey protein isolate a day? Is this going to do anything for me? Yes, not only is it beneficial for maintaining healthy body mass, but also we now know it's helping to support vitamin status. It is helping to support natural antioxidant production. All of these things are really important because when we talk about age-related changes that occur even in the brain, we know that glutathione, as that level decreases, and we have a loss of glutathione, this made a major impact on overall cognitive function. So a decrease in glutathione is certainly associated with microglial activation as well as endothelial dysfunction. So knowing these things, and they did a really novel study out at the Salk Institute in California looking specifically at this, understanding the role that glutathione makes in the ability for the body to maintain proper brain health is really quite relevant. So once again, we can kind of tie this back and say, well, wow, so whey protein isolate can do so much for us when it comes to just maintaining brain health. Yes, because it's helping to support the glutathione levels. We know that obviously when we look at things like sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle mass loss, the important role that those proteins play. But once again, we have to be smart about the type of proteins that we are taking in and how much protein we take at any given time. So if we incorporate in the whey protein isolate, we are going to be providing our body with all of this added support that perhaps is not coming from dietary intake, especially as we get older. So the University of Texas was looking specifically at this, at sarcopenia, which we know is this very complex, multifactorial process that occurs when you start to have this loss of muscle mass. And this is really actually quite common. Some people call it muscle wasting, but sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle mass loss. And they found at the University of Texas was that the supplementation of whey protein is really incredibly beneficial to not only help to maintain the muscle mass itself, but what they found was it helped to target levels for inflammation. So what do I mean by this? Well, when we think about chronic disease states and we think about people who are getting older that maybe have diabetes, have heart disease, hypertension, and we know that there's a higher rate of systemic inflammation occurring. And one of the things that we know helps to drive that is oxidative stress. So the levels of inflammation were significantly reduced by the introduction of the whey protein. And they went on, and that's exactly what they determined, was that due to the antioxidant effects that came from the whey protein, this could be really, really beneficial, even in the setting of coronary artery disease, because it was helping to target the inflammatory response. So clearly we know that whey protein is really relevant when it comes to people who are young and working out and want to pump that iron and get big muscles. But I want people to be able to walk away with understanding why it is those essential amino acids play such an integral role in our overall health and wellness. In the journal PLOS One, which is a really large medical journal, they found a really positive effect for supplementation of whey protein isolate. And what they were specifically looking at was at muscle mass. So once again, this sarcopenia, and understanding that this is really quite common and that older people who aren't doing anything to prevent that loss of muscle really start to drift towards this state where even basic daily living activities can become more and more difficult. And researchers at the Department of Kinesiology at McMaster University up in Canada, they were talking specifically about this. So in their study, they took a group of men between the ages of 49 and 70 years old, and they gave them whey protein for 6 weeks. And at the end of that 6 weeks, they were absolutely amazed by how impressive their results were. They found that the whey helped to increase that lean body mass as well as strength. And this is key because as we get older, we want to try to maintain our youthfulness, and we want to be able to age gracefully as we possibly can. So all of these things really in combination, maintaining proper B vitamins for the support of red blood cell production and for the central nervous system and for the heart. These are all very important factors. We understand this. We understand that our exposure to the adequate amount of amino acids and vitamins coming from our diet oftentimes are not what they should be, which is why when we look at the broad spectrum of which whey protein actually falls into so many different categories of our health, talking about the immune system, as I mentioned, and really seeing the difference that incorporating whey protein into your daily routine can make for you is really quite impressive. So not only beyond that, what we know about sarcopenia and the numerous clinical research trials that are out there showing obviously its benefits when it comes to allowing for muscle strength and maintaining muscle mass. We know all of that, but also really diving into the benefits that it can yield us in terms of fending off oxidative stress, targeting inflammation, helping to promote our longevity via brain health for cognitive function. Oftentimes people would never think about the way that whey protein works to support your brain. Knowing all of these different things is a reason in and of itself to say, you know what, maybe whey protein is a good idea for me. And what I often will say is it's a really easy thing for you to kind of blend into your daily routine. And maybe you are on the go a lot, taking a couple scoops of that whey protein, mixing it up, and off you go. This is a nice way for you to get that really clean source. And this is important too, is when we talk about sourcing of whey protein, it has to come from clean sources. There is unfortunately so much not so clean whey protein that is out there on the market, and ours is American source, and this is very important to understand. Ours is coming from the United States, and it is this hydrolyzed form, which means it's pre-digested for that optimal absorption. And at the end of the day, that is what we want. We want to be taking things that we know can really provide us an overall benefit. So that is all that I have for you for today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Invite Health podcast. Remember, you can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. Now, do make sure that you subscribe and leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health, and we will see you next time for another episode of the Invite Health podcast.